Hey folks, what's going on? I want to talk to you today about injury prevention, recovery, and pain management. So, I don't want to give away all my secrets, expose my weak links, but I'm comfortable sharing a little bit about my injury stories and my health here because I've at least somewhat managed to turn my weaknesses into strengths. And more so because I know how frustrating, how challenging, how lonely injuries can be, and the path to recovery. I don't want to scare anybody, but the fact is injury is part of life, it's part of training. But knowing how to navigate, we could continue to progress and get through safely. So, first off, like I said, I don't want to freak anybody out, but it happens in training, right? Even the best program, the best technique, all of the above, things happen, accidents happen, people fall, we get tweaks, we get all of these things, and the question is, how do we navigate this? In addition, without even training, there are plenty of people who don't exercise, who you'll see with, wrist wraps and ankle wraps and knee wraps and all of the above. And back pains and whatnot just from living a sedentary life. So the question is, how do we navigate it? And also, I know as an athlete that it could be extremely frustrating to go from exercising consistently and the joy that you get from that, and really the hormone balance that you get from that, to going to being sidelined after. There's also a whole psychological component of, I know I often felt like, people almost want to see you down. They almost want to see you injured, because they don't train and they don't want to see your gains and your progress, and they almost find a glee in consoling you. Oh, well, what do you expect was going to happen, kind of thing. You run all the time, or you lift weights all the time, and in some ways, again, that's a whole spiritual, psychological thing of pushing through that. But those are some of the things that we deal with as athletes, right, and as human beings. So, injury prevention, recovery, and pain management. So first off, in terms of prevention, right, there's a lot we could do in terms of fixing our technique, getting proper coaching, listening to our bodies, getting rest, proper recovery. One of the number one things I would say, though, is simply volume management, intensity management, right? My point is that you can actually get away with suboptimal or even poor form on a lot of techniques if you simply are not lifting that much, right? So one of the biggest mistakes people make is that they lift too heavy, too quickly, or too often, and then they set themselves up for this acute injury, or chronic, but sometimes an acute injury. So yeah, it's basically a lot easier to get stronger than it is to remain injury-free. So if you're thinking like, oh, I want to train, but I don't want to get injured, watch your load management. Now, again, I encourage you to lift strong, to lift heavy, but do it intelligently. Take your time building up, know what you're doing, and listen to your body. In terms of recovery, again, I can't stress it enough, but sleep and recovery is really where the gains happen. For example, even when you're in school and you're learning academically, but also in fitness, the gains don't actually happen in your workout. It actually happens when you go to sleep that night. Your brain processes what it went through during the day. It rewires your neurological system, and your nervous system, and that's what repairs damaged tissue. So it's actually pretty amazing what your body is able to do. My point in saying that is oftentimes, let's say you have a little tweak and you're thinking like, oh man, I'm injured, I'm out. Sometimes you literally just need a little rest and you will come back stronger. Part of why I'm making this video, aside from being an older athlete and dealing with stuff, I've been more diligent with my training, and things have come up, and it's a little frustrating, but I'm seeing how I navigate it now, and it's actually very navigable. For example, this last week we had a little lifting competition at work. Preparing for it, I wanted to see how much load I could take. So I was challenging myself a little bit, and then my wrist was in an extreme amount of pain. So I had to analyze what happened. Part of it was my main workout. I certainly used my wrist a lot, but I felt like my technique and my form was good, so I didn't feel like it was that alone. And then when I tested myself with an increased load, again, I felt okay, but then later my wrist was kind of killing me. So looking back, I'm like, okay, what's going on? First off, literally, so part of me in my brain is like, oh man, that's it, time, I'm gonna be out for months kind of thing. But then I realized like, hey, I just, my wrist was under a lot of strain, needed a little bit of rest at least. But then, of course, I had the competition a day or two later, and I didn't really have the luxury of rest. So what did I do? I did deep tissue massage on myself, along my wrist, along the tendons associated with that took off some of the immediate pressure. What really helped a lot is doing some active release further up my kinetic chain, right? Further up my arm, in my forearm, in my bicep, in my shoulder, in my back, in my neck, right? All of that actually took tension off my wrist. And then also getting sleep, I actually got a full rest, and I woke up and I was like, man, I'm still sore. I said, I'm gonna go for another REM cycle, right? And I went back to sleep. And it's amazing how your body just rebuilds. Which goes back to pain management too, right? Which is, when I was younger, a lot of my workouts were just about mental toughness, right? Just pushing through stuff and mind over matter. And I'm glad I went through that portion of my training. But now I'm really learning how to listen to the pain, right? The pain is basically telling you something. And rather than just saying, shut up, I'm saying, okay, cool, there's something going on here. I need to work on that a little bit. And that's basically kind of it in a nutshell, right? I guess I don't need to ramble on beyond that. Let me know what questions you may have. But just to reiterate, right? So in terms of injury prevention, a lot of it is just load management combined with proper technique, getting coaching. In terms of recovery, again, your body's miraculous. Don't think that just because you have, one of the big things that helped me mentally was understanding that an injury is something that happens to you in a moment, but after that, you're in a healing phase, right? So I don't even consider myself injured when something like that happens. I consider myself healing. And often, sometimes you may think like, oh man, I'm injured. You literally might just need a little rest. Whether it's hours, days, weeks or months, your body is amazing at healing itself. And then also understanding, the kinetic chain and how oftentimes the pain that we feel in one area is actually because that area is compensating for tightness and weak links in other areas. Just looking at it as a whole unit, a whole body system. And then lastly, like I said, pain management. Develop your relationship with pain and realize it's just your body trying to tell you stuff, and respond accordingly, and you can have a long, healthy career of challenging yourself and developing yourself athletically and finding some peace and joy in it all. All right, let me know what questions you have. Love you all. Peace.